me as much as them is if you are, in fact, sexist. And then you get to watch them squirm. And hopefully,
you're really getting mileage out of that echo button.
I am getting mileage out of it. It'll wear off over time. Don't worry. This is not going to become like the constant echo button thing.
Yes. Yeah, so I think really all libertarians need to do to win the sweatshop debate in the same way is to just, get out some woke 12-year-old shoemaker from Malaysia and just,
some hand-capped 12-year-old shoemaker.
Exactly.
Buy more Nikes. I want to buy an AK-47.
Exactly. But that stopped being used within like a week because nobody actually cares about women's soccer.
Shocker.
Yeah, proving why they don't get paid that much.
Women's soccer players, much like teachers, are insanely overpaid.
Teachers, the woman at the post office, who wasn't...
Women in any line of work, really, right? Is that what you're getting at?
People at the DMV. All right, let's see what else we got. Speaking of...
Women at the DMV, I mean, they should be paying us. I kid one female listener.
Yeah. Listen, we apologize to the one woman who listens to our podcast. Speaking of Donald Trump casually making fun of people, Donald Trump likes to make fun of John Bolton. He does it all the time, apparently, at meetings. Whenever Donald Trump talks about a country, he'll just ask John Bolton if that's one of the countries that he wants to bomb. So he'll be talking about Ireland and say, "Hey, John, is this one of the countries that you want to bomb or no?"
John, is Ireland one of those countries you want to invade? He asks with people in the room. It's so great.
Given what he's doing to John McCain, I wonder what he'll be saying about Bolton when he's dead. There's not much on this. It's just funny, like the casual humiliation of John Bolton, sending him to Mongolia in place of Bolton. Just as when he went to North Korea, Trump recruited Tucker Carlson to be his point man on the scene. Donald Trump has apparently tapped Rand Paul to be the one to negotiate with Iran.
Actually, Rand Paul tapped Donald Trump.
Oh, okay. Rand Paul asked Donald Trump if he could talk to the Iranians.
Which, as we know, Rand Paul has a deep history in the Middle East, does he not?
Oh, yes. Rand Paul has a pro-Shia bias. It's actually amazing. Oh, okay. Just give me a second to find that now.
I'll keep talking while you do. So, as one of my astute colleagues said to me, it's like Trump keeps John Bolton around just to take pot shots at him. And in the article, in one article I read, I don't know, I'm obviously extremely well read, so it's hard to track it down. But it was quoted as saying that basically the strategy for keeping Trump around, Trump keeping John Bolton around, is a good cop, bad cop strategy, where Bolton obviously has this like fire-breathing warmonger, kill it with fire personality. So Trump gets to kind of have him there like a dog on a leash, where he can, when he's talking to, I guess not Kim Jong-un anymore because they're best friends now, but when he's talking to, I don't know, whoever, some foreign leader who we're adversaries with, he can have John Bolton there like, whoa, don't make me let loose this guy. You don't want that. This is my partner who knocked the coffee cup out of your hand. Now I come in, I'm Trump, and I go, hey, sorry about my partner, he's kind of an asshole, but let's get you out of here. Let's figure out this jam, Classic good cop, bad cop. And then I would add to that, in my own genius inside the Beltway thinking, is that when you have John Bolton out in the world, his only job is either to work in presidential administrations or to be a pundit on TV. And when he's a pundit on TV and you go to North Korea, he's going to go on Fox News and he's going to say to the Fox News viewership, which is Trump's base, which is why Trump, I think, so carefully watches Fox News, is to keep in tune with them, or maybe it's a coincidence. He's going to say to them, Trump shouldn't do this. Trump's weak. Trump's just like Obama. Trump's not a tough guy. He's not a real Republican. He's not a hawk. He's not looking out for America. He's a pussy. He's a wimp. And if you go talk to the Iranians, or you don't nuke them, or you don't blow up a ship, or drone bomb them, or whatever, he's going to go on TV, on Fox News, and speak to your base and say, Trump's weak. Trump's caving to the Ayatollah. Trump's a pussy. Instead, you do the classic Michael Corleone. You bring him in because he's your enemy. And now, when you're in North Korea, instead of him being on Fox News explaining to Sean Hannity why you're the worst president ever, he gets to be in Mongolia someplace talking to nobody doing nothing.
Tactical hiring.
And then when you want to go to extend a olive branch to the Iranians, or just not extend a Hellfire missile, instead of going on Fox News, he's stuck in a room somewhere, red-faced, screaming at some kid with a clipboard about, why doesn't Trump listen to me? And you get to just laugh and laugh. That's assuming Trump is, thinking these things through to the level that I have sometimes thought he might be.
He probably does. Yeah, let me just read off this. It seems
to be pretty, if he did it by accident, it's a pretty damn lucky accident. In a string of lucky accidents.
It's a string of lucky accidents. Anyway, let me read off that Rand Paul tweet. Ready? And this is the exact text of Rand Paul's tweet. He says, Sunnis have been killing Shia since the massacre at Karbala in 680 AD. If we wait until they stop killing each other, we will stay 1,000 years or more. I agree with @real Donald Trump. Bring the troops home. Now, Rand Paul made that tweet in January of 2019. It was when Donald Trump had said he was going to bring the troops home from Syria, but then he, didn't. But let's just look at this tweet. Here's some things that Rand Paul says. He doesn't say...
We're going to do a deep dive into this tweet.
Deep dive into Rand Paul's mind. He says, he doesn't say Sunnis have been fighting with Shia. And he doesn't say Sunnis and Shia have been killing each other. He says Sunnis have been killing Shia. And he doesn't call it the Battle of Karbala. He calls it the massacre at Karbala. Rand Paul, the junior senator from Kentucky, is not just informed on the history of Islamic sectarianism. He has apparently taken a pro-Shia side. Right. I mean, for those of you who are not particularly well-versed in Middle Eastern history, that's totally fine. To put this in perspective, it would be as if some Chinese senator was talking about, partisan politics, and they said something along the lines of, urban coastal elites have always had it out for Middle America since the War of Northern Aggression. You would want to know immediately, who have been talking to exactly? Right. That's not exactly from the Associated Press style guide, right? That's not in the textbooks. Who have you been talking to? So Rand Paul is just, or as I'm going to start calling him, Randal Bull Ibn Runalid al-Kantaki Husseini, right, is exactly the kind of person who should be negotiating with the Iranians. Because apparently he is our first Shia senator. The reason that these negotiations are important is because a few weeks ago, Britain seized a tanker at the Strait of Gibraltar that belonged to Iran. The reason that the Iranian tanker was in the Strait of Gibraltar is because it was trying to deliver oil to Syria. Now, for those of you who kind of know geography, so that they had to go around Africa and come at Syria from the west. And those of you who are really knowledgeable about geography will say, hang on a second, why did they need to send the oil that way instead of just sending it through the Suez Canal and then just giving it to Syria? Just that way. And the reason is because apparently the EU has strong-armed Egypt into complying with sanctions against the Syrian regime. There's a war happening in Syria. Some of you may have heard. But Iran never signed these sanctions. They never agreed to anything. And so even if the Suez Canal Authority in Egypt won't let them through, Iran, has a regional ally. So they're going to send that oil the long way around. Instead of sending it through Amazon Prime, they're going to do ground shipping, 15 to 20 business days. And England just took the tanker. They just seized it, even though, Iran did not break any laws or agreements that Iran itself was party to. And this was praised heavily by, the militant yes men in the media, talking about how, England is standing up to the Iranian regime, very proud of the Royal Marines for doing this. You may also be asking, how is it exactly that England controls the southern tip of Spain? And that's an entirely separate question that I am not going to answer here on this podcast. But then Iran just retaliated, and they just seized a British oil tanker. Actually, they seized two, but then they released one of them. But with the other one, they just hoisted the Iranian flag on top of it, making it now a new Iranian oil tanker. It was funny, too, because the British oil tankers were, afraid to come out of were afraid to cross the Straits of Tehran because they had a feeling that Iran would do it, and they were correct, but they did it anyway. presumably someone at the British Home Office like, just go ahead. They're not. What are they going to do? What are you going to do? Steal my oil tanker? Quote from man whose oil tanker was stolen. And so Iran has simply said, as soon as England sends that oil tanker on its way to Syria, we'll just release this one. And so there's something of an impasse there. But this just shows, the general myopia of the war party, where, Western powers can kind of do whatever they want to, to third world countries. And if they do the exact same thing back, it's an act of aggression. But what's really fascinating about this is that, England has not had the ability to bully around Middle Eastern countries on its own since the Suez Canal crisis, which is in, the early 50s. And so they have no capability at all to launch independent reprisal against Iran. Right. Yeah. I mean, that day for England is done by, 6 decades. And so it's just kind of interesting to see what happens when the military superiority is gone, but you just have the colonialist rhetoric. So they're saying all these things about, these Iranians who are breaking the laws. Like, what are you going to do about it? That's right. Nothing. It's like we were saying, how there's weak countries and strong countries, and, the strong do what they will and the weak tolerate what they must. But in this case, a weak country did what he would, and so another weak country did what they would too.
I don't have anything to say to that.
There's some other Orange Man news. So at the time of recording, there's a hearing in Congress where Mueller is there testifying about the report. I didn't watch it because I don't care.
Well, you don't want to see if there's going to be any bombshells?
The walls are closing in.
The walls are closing in!
Right. So,
sorry, I can't help myself.
I can tell you can't. So, speaking of boats and seizures, so John McAfee, the Libertarian Party's last, best, only hope for the future, was arrested by, as it turns out, Dominican police, which is strange because he was supposed to be in Cuba. But he's been on his boat the whole time, so he presumably he docked in Havana, sailed around some more, because if you own a boat, you might as well. But he was arrested by the Dominican, I'm guessing Coast Guard or whatever.
Free our president.
Right. And John McAfee's campaign manager, who I swear to God, I mean, John McAfee looks like he's some kind of like supervillain or something. But his campaign manager is to John McAfee what John McAfee looks like to other people. John McAfee's campaign manager has a goatee and an eye patch. Okay, his background, just go look at his Twitter profile. His profile picture. I mean, he looks like a Nod commander from Command and Conquer.
Oh my God! Holy shit! That picture is amazing.
You could not look any more like some kind of super. I mean, I'm worried this guy's about to demand $1 billion.
Even the lighting on that picture is fucking nuts. And he's clearly wearing a blazer with a black T-shirt under it.
Yes. Got the black and red repeating background. Looks like on a 1984 with the Inksock logo.
He does. Oh my God. So if you were wondering,
yeah,
it was the brains behind the operation. We apparently have located it. Oh my God.
Rob,
yes. This is Rob. This is his.
Oh my God! His full name is. Okay.
You want to do it? If you want, you can do the first half or something.
I'll do it. His name is Rob Benedicto Pacifico Juan Maria Logia. I can't believe I got that right the first time.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so he I mean, just look at him. Just look at him.
You know, they say you can't judge a book by its cover.
But come on.
Sometimes the cover actually tells you a lot about what's in.
Yeah, I mean, this is like some schoolium fancy something like, John McAfee, this is exactly what I expected your campaign manager to look like. All right.
Oh my god.